Hello everybody, is everyone alright? I am alright, thank you. My name is Beyonce Giselle Knowles Carter. Why would you try me? Why would you bother? And today I want to talk about my favourite books.
Yes.
So as you can tell from my channel, I do read, a fair bit. And I don't know why I haven't done this video before, but it just suddenly sort of occurred to me. I was like, oh, I've never sort of gone through my favourite books. My favourite ever books. So today we're going to do that. And I've compiled a stack of, I think 10. I think there's 10 here. 10 books, and these are my favourite books today. So they're not tiered, they're not ranked, these 10 books. I've put them in kind of publication order. So we're going to go from the earliest to the latest. And let's get on with it, shall we?
Let's just get on with it then.
So at number 1, we are going to the ancient world, to the island of Lesbos, and you've seen me. If you've seen my channel, you've seen me rave about this book millions of times. But one of my favourite books is, if not Winter, Fragments of Sappho by Sappho, but translated by Anne Carson and put together by Anne Carson. Do you need me to waffle on about this book again? I just love it. I love it because Sappho herself, a fascinating figure in history, and it's just unfortunate that all her work is kind of broken up into little bits and into fragments. And so in translating her, translators have the task of trying to sort of piece together what is left. And Anne Carson, I mean, I've said this before, but she very much just focuses on what is left, and she leaves out what isn't. And the result, you either like it or you don't. I mean, I've seen people, because I've recommended this book so much, I've seen people, pick it up and read it, and some people are like, "This is rubbish," and I'm like, sorry. But so you either sort of, just now, gold sandal dawn, Eros shook my mind like a mountain wind falling on oak trees. Yeah, you either get with the program or you don't, and I very much do get with the program, and I love it so much. I can sit with it and I can just flick through it, and it just, the mystery and the kind of just the mystery of it, and the kind of, I like to sort of cosplay as an archaeologist or a scholar and kind of go, oh yes, because she does she leaves in the original Greek as well. So yeah, that's one of my favourites. So there. So at number 2 we have Jane Eyre. Jane Flipping Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. One of my sort of most popular videos on my channel is my sort of Jane Eyre review video. I had such a great time reading this book. It's just wild, this book, because I didn't really know. I don't know how I'd sort of managed to skip not knowing the story, but I didn't know the story. And it's just wild. It sort of goes all over the place. It's very subversive, particularly if you think about books from the time. It's very subversive. The story is just sort of magnificent. It's like a magnificent story, isn't it? You've got this central love story, which is complicated, really complicated. You've got a central character who is the best, and it's gothic. You've got the scary woman in the attic. You've got a really kind of blindsiding ending. It's just fabulous. It's really, really fabulous. Fabulous. So next we're having a hop, skip, and a jump to Russia, to the Russians, and I've chosen, out of all the Russians, I've chosen this one, The Brothers Karamazov. Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I'm really annoyed because when I went to get this from the shelf, I dropped it and it's made this massive. Can you see? I've ruined it. I haven't ruined it. This book is just, it's a lot. It's a epic. It's really dark. It's about the absence of God. It's about the nature of evil. It's about families. It's about murder. And greed. Fabulous. I remember when I finished it, I was just like, oh my word. It's a novel more about it's not really very plot heavy from what I remember. It's just but the discussions that it raises about
The absence of God.
evil and religion and all this sort of stuff is just very, very interesting. I find it fascinating, and it's within this story which is very bleak and very dark and complicated. So yes, I liked it. I loved it a lot. So there we go. From bleak to not bleak, we're going back to England, and this time we have Middlemarch by George Eliot. Middlemarch! Middlemarch. Oh, I love this. Is like fabulous. I really, really loved reading this. This is kind of is it a tough sell? I don't know. Yeah, it's sort of a tough sell because it's very long. It's a very slow burner. It's a slow burner. But if you just allow yourself to sort of just sit in it, then the characters, just the way it develops slowly is just, it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. And I love because there's three sort of separate, there is a main one, but there's three separate kind of love stories going on in this small town of Middlemarch. And the way that they all sort of develops and the way the characters change over time, the way Dorothea changes over time, it's just, I really loved it. And also because it kind of subverts a lot of things with the a marriage at the beginning, sort of near the beginning. And you're like, oh, well, the main characters got married at the beginning and what's going to happen, you know? So I really, really loved it. I like this novel more than I do Jane Austen. Hence why she's not here. I found it just absolutely fabulous. The scene where it's raining outside and Dorothea and Will are kind of like, I mean, I was just like, I do want to get another copy because whilst I do like Wordsworth classics, this is a bit drab and I'd like another copy. Maybe the pink penguin one, I don't know, but yes, I'm going to get another copy of this. Next! So next we're now going to the modernists. Again, we're sticking in England. And I've chosen a Virginia Woolf novel, and we have The Waves. I remember reading this when I was a teenager and just being like, just loving it. It's a weird novel. It is incredibly verbose and dense and kind of not surreal, but just very abstract in its language. It's about all the kind of the little moments and the, kind of mundane moments, but just everything sort of ramped up to 11. So like a child playing with a boat in a puddle is suddenly this really literary kind of thing.
I will not conjugate the verb.
Yeah, for pretentious me at 17, I mean, this was catnip, really. So yeah, it's the story about 6 friends and their lives together from when they were children to when they're adults. There's a death, and that all sort of brings them together, and it's just about their lives and their loves and their relationships, but told in this really, really kind of expansive language, which just kind of sucks you in. You can sort of go around in circles a little bit with this novel, and I have gone around in circles with it. I reread it a couple of years ago, and yeah, I just really love it. It's always going to be. I hope I always have this copy as well because I just really love it. So yeah, The Waves. Next up, we're going to the 60s, and we have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Or 100 Years of Crappy Magic Realism, as someone once said on BookTube. I love this book. This book was actually the one that got me into reading again back at the beginning of 2019. It's got men with massive muscles and tattoos and massive willies and stuff. So yeah, this is kind of Magic Realism 101. It's the story of generations and generations of this one family in this town or village, which is founded at the beginning and then by the end is decimated for reasons. and it's incredibly, it's very weird. There are moments which are just completely out of the blue, sort of magical. It's very bleak, well, not bleak, it's very dark at some points. It's very sort of brutal, but there's something about it which I really, really love. I love how just left field it can get. I I love how, you know, someone is killed and there's a trickle of blood which makes its way all the way to the character's mother, and she sees the trickle of blood and then she's like, ah. So I love all that kind of stuff. There's a moment where there's a big where it starts to rain for years and years and years, and there's fish sort of flying in the air because it's rained so much. It's all that sort of stuff which I just really, really love, and I love I love how it talks about politics as well. I love how, yeah, about history repeating. I really love it. I really love it. I want to read it soon, actually. Again, I need to read his other work. I haven't read his other works. So yes. Next, we're going to the 80s. Oh my flipping heck! This book, and we have Toni Morrison's Beloved or Beloved. This book really, I mean, I hate this cover. I need to get another copy because I hate this cover. It's really kind of, as a cover, it's just like, considering what the book is about, it's a really nasty cover. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, this book is just immense and a masterpiece. So the book is about an escaped enslaved woman who has kind of managed to build a life again. However, the ghost of her dead baby arrives as a young woman to the house, and it's about how the effects of trauma kind of lingers on, and it's about this very sort of toxic mother-daughter relationship, and you know, the mother sort of trying desperately to kind of do everything in her power to keep this ghost happy, and the ghost kind of like, so it's and it's a lot. It's a lot. I was just thought it was so powerful. I am currently working my way through Morrison's oeuvre, and I think this is going to remain my favourite. I like it better than Song of Solomon, obviously, otherwise that would be here. But it's just, it's a lot. It's fabulous. And it stayed with me. So there we go. Next, we're going to the 90s. We have good old The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And yeah, this is one of my favourite books. So deal with it. I always forget how long this book is. I mean, it's, you know, a good 600 plus pages, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I have a deep kind of soft spot for this book because it's I mean, I remember reading it when I was a teenager and just being completely, as many teenagers do even now, just being completely sort of blown away by it, being like, ah, and sort of wanting to be at this university and with these characters, even though they are despicable, rich, spoiled, entitled murderers. I kind of wanted to be in that kind of thing. I didn't go the whole hog and sort of start to wear the jackets and stuff like people do, but yes, I just liked it a lot. And I think, I mean, it is a silly story. It is silly, but it is kind of, but for me, I do, because I reread it recently, about a couple of years ago again, and yeah, it is a silly story, and it's kind of natural for, you know, big hits and kind of these things to kind of have a sort of revisionism type thing towards them. But yeah, no, I just really, really love it. I love the way it kind of just, it's a murder mystery where you know who the killer is at the beginning and killers are at the beginning, and it's sort of, as Donna Tartt likes to do, she sort of likes to kind of make things worse and worse and worse in terms of someone's psychology, and kind of stacking up the stakes and everything. So yes, I'm very interested to see what her fourth book is going to be like, because I was umming and ahhing whether to have this one or the Goldfinch, but then I think the Goldfinch is a flawed book, is much more flawed than this. I mean, this is kind of, whilst this is silly, it's kind of, it does what it does, and it's sort of fine. But so the Goldfinch, I think whilst I do like the Goldfinch, it just there's just things about it which I think no, it's just a bit flawed. But this is just it's a jolly romp, masquerading as a literary fiction novel, and yeah, I really really love it. So there we go. Next up, I have not read this since I first read it, and I kind of need to but I remember just finishing it and just being so moved and so kind of grateful that this book exists. And it's Song of Flipping Achilles. Everyone's read this book now, and it's kind of, I don't know whether it's sort of got not a bad rep, but it's one of those things where when everyone likes it, everyone sort of starts to sort of pick holes in it. But oh dear, I mean, I just remember sort of thinking, because I'm 36 now, I sort of remember thinking, I wish I'd read this book when I was 17, because it just it's just fabulous. I mean, yeah, I mean it's Greek mythology, Achilles and Patroclus. It's I think the ending. I thought the ending was so kind of like, I think I actually cried when I read the ending, or I was very moved anyway. And yeah, I just love it a lot. I love it a lot. And also, I think because Madeline Miller, she does, her kind of vision of Greek mythology, is kind of I vibe with. I vibe with her sort of version of how gods are and how her kind of and how things work. So I kind of vibe with that. And yeah, just as a novel, it's just very very moving and very nice. Yeah, I love it a lot. Love it a lot. And lastly, we have a book from a couple of years ago. We have Ducks Newburyport! Ducks Newburyport!
From the front, this doesn't look like, it's like a normal book, but then you turn it to the side and...
I do think this book is a masterpiece. I know there's some people who don't consider it a masterpiece and throw buns at it. I am going to be when I read it, it took me a good 3 months. It took me 3 months to read it. It's really tough. It's not a book which is friendly to its reader, because it is this kind of continual sentence with the fact that, the fact that, the fact that, the fact that. I don't know how you can I don't know how you can listen to an audiobook of this, but some people do. But I do think it does encapsulate that moment in time, which was the Trump era, pre-COVID Trump era, in America. It just encapsulates that kind of feeling of what is going to happen, that feeling of presentiment of climate change and of Trump and of, in America, essentially, particularly kind of mass shootings. That's what I'm trying to say. Mass shootings, all within the brain of this woman, this mum of, I think it's mum of 3 or 4, trying to make pies and make cakes and things. And the reason that I thought it was a masterpiece was the end. I thought it's got a very good payoff ending, very dramatic, big sort of payoff ending, and that's something that you have to sort of try and get to people who are sort of on page 200 and going, I can't read 800 more pages of this. And it's like, yes, you can, because the ending is worth it. It's going to be interesting because next year in 2024 I want to reread this, and it will be 5 years since I've read it, and I want to see, because I am saying that it's one of my favourite novels and that it's a masterpiece and everything, but I want to see whether it kind of holds up, because it is a Trump era novel, but it's a Trump era novel before COVID, and if there's anything that defines the Trump administration, it's COVID and it's 2020. It's what happened in 2020, really, isn't it? And so, yeah. So as a novel which looks at the Trump era, it's kind of almost sort of dated itself, sort of even now, because it's a very sort of specific time period, and I want to know whether that works in its favour, whether the kind of the presentiments of like what's going to happen. 2019, sort of what's over the horizon, what that sort of says now, rather than having a novel about falling over the crevasse of 2020. And the other thing which kind of saddens me is that this is now kind of out of print, and it looks as if, because this is such a tough sell, you know, how many sort of reprints of this are there going to be, and is this going to become a forgotten book over time because it's so difficult to read? Who knows? But yes, no, I would urge you to give it a go, and to, you know, it doesn't matter if it takes you a year to get through it, but for me, the ending makes it all worth it, and I just think it's fabulous. So there we go. So there's my 10 favourite books ever. There are other books which make me sort of feel more happy, but in terms of kind of impact, I think these are my top 10 favourite books. So, what do you think? Are these some of your favourites? Are these some of your hated books? I'm sure that some people will hate some of the books on this list. So yes, do let me know. Yes, for now, I shall see you later, and goodbye.